Welcome to this episode of Learning Fusion. In today's episode, we're going to be covering some of the extra nodes and extra operations we can do within our 3D environment. So let's roll this intro and let's get into it.
We're learning Fusion together. We'll learn 2D stuff and 3D stuff and particle stuff and compositing stuff, deep pixel stuff and tracking stuff, but not other stuff, but some other cool stuff, because we're learning Fusion together.
So here we are in Fusion, and I've just got a simple little 3D scene with a shape, a text. I've got our camera, our merge 3D that everything's going in. I got a directional light and a spotlight, and it's going into our render and out our media out. So I want to cover some of these extra little nodes within the 3D area that really don't have a name or a function. Well, they have names, but I can't say, hey, they're render nodes or they're light nodes or whatever. So they're just random nodes that you can use within Fusion in the 3D environment. So I'm going to try to hit these super fast so you can see what they're all for. And I'll just go down this little list. If we go to the tools area under the 3D, these are all the little things we can use within our 3D environment in Fusion. So the first one is this Bender 3D, and what the Bender 3D does is exactly that. So if I take our text and I just kind of plug it into our text there, if I go to our Bender node, you notice we have different bend types. So if I have it on bend, it's going to bend the text. Taper is going to taper our text. Twist is going to twist it. And shear is going to shear it. And we can change our axis, our angles, and our centers and all that fun stuff. And with all these nodes I'm covered today, I'll put down in the description because I did do in-depth node breakdown. So if you want a more in-depth breakdown on any of these nodes, just go to the little description and you can watch that video. So that is the Bender node. It bends 3D shapes, and you can pretty much put that on any shape that you input into your Merge 3D. Then we have our little custom vertex node here. And I'm not even going to attempt to go over this because this custom vertex is only for extremely smart people, for you to put in this trig and calc and all this crazy stuff, all your functions for your custom vertex. And you can create custom vertexes based off this node. I have never used it. I do know some very smart people that have, but I'll leave those videos to them. So let's get rid of that. So if you're extremely smart, custom vertex node. Then we have our Displace 3D node, and that's exactly what it does, is it displaces. So let's go ahead and plug this into our little cube there. Our cube, there we go. It's plugged in. And when we have it plugged in, we have this input right here. So whatever we input into this, based off what channel we tell it to look at, is going to displace our 3D. And you can use anything. So we could bring in a Displace fast noise, and we can create a little fast noise real quick. Let's create something that's can be viewable there. We can even change our seed rate so it's moving. And we can take this fast noise, and if I look at our little 3D node here, or let's look at our render node, and input this fast noise into the displace input, you notice it just displaced our shape based off of that input. And right now we have it set up as Luma, and I can change my scale so it's not so dramatic. But if I push play, you can see it's seething with our little fast noise there. Additionally, we could use, say, just raw footage. So I've just got this clip. If I wanted to displace based off this clip, I could just bring that in. If we look at our little render node, you can see if I push play, it's displacing based off of our movie clip there. And we can change the settings, change the channel if we want. If we want it to be our RGB, there we go. We've got it switched. So that is the displace node. Just remember, for it to operate, we actually need something plugged into the displace for it to work. So let's disconnect that. Let's disconnect this. There we go. Let's move this up. Next, we have the Duplicate 3D. So it does exactly what it's saying. If I plug this into the duplicate node, bring that in, and I can even disconnect that. However many copies I tell it to make, and I change my offset. And I can even transform this over so it's centered so we can see what's going on. On our duplicate node, we can just change all of our settings for those duplicates, and it's creating instances of every single one of them. There's even a jitter mode, so we can jitter it up if we need to. Even our scale, we can jitter our scale. So that is the duplicate node. We already covered the Extrude 3D the other day. Remember, that's with our shape system. Cover FBX Mesh. We covered Fog, Image Plane 3D. Now our Locator 3D here, this is used for transforming 3D coordinates into 2D coordinates. Meaning if, say, I want to use this cube as my location, I can plug that into my 3D locator right here, and this is pushing out coordinate systems that can be used in different 2D stuff. So not necessarily within our 3D stuff, but our 2D stuff. So that's what that is used for. Our Override 3D is very useful. And what the Override 3D does is exactly that. So if we look at every one of our little shapes we bring in, or even our camera stuff, if we go to the controls, we can look at all this visibility, the lighting. We can make it visible, not visible. We can change our lighting, affected by lights, not affected by lights. We can make all those changes because this section is available for all of our different shapes and different stuff we do. It isn't available, however, for our 3D text. Our 3D text is a very old node, one of the first 3D nodes that ever came out in Fusion, and it doesn't have those options. So if we wanted to be able to change those settings like we can in the shapes, we can use our 3D override. So after our text, we can just grab this, input it, and now on our 3D override, we can tell it what we want to do. So if we want to affect our visibility, we can say do visible. Now within there, once we check do visible, we can say whether we want it visible or not. Same with a lighting. If we want to do affected by lights, we can change whether that's affected by lights or not. Whether it's a shadow receiver or a shadow caster, we can make all these changes so we can plug that in there. Additionally, if you have a whole bunch of shapes and a bunch of stuff going on and you don't want to go in here and change everything individually, you can put this override 3D after all of your shapes and override everything. So if you have 20 shapes in here and don't want to go in here and keep changing your visibility, you can just plug all 20 into this one override 3D and then do visible, and it'll just hide them all. So that is the override 3D. We're going to skip the point cloud 3D again. Projector we did. We will cover this replace material when we're talking about materials. Now replace normals comes in quite handy, especially if, not that one, replace normals. Especially if we're bringing in, say, like FBX models or something that has incorrect normals. Additionally, if we make like random shapes, like let me select the cylinder here, and let's go ahead and change this so we can see what's happening. Let's rotate this. Let's rotate this so we can see this little edge right here. And let's say I have a Displace 3D on it. So let's bring in a Displace, bring our shape in. Let's plug that in there instead. So if we notice, if we look, it's doing something wanky with our little end caps to our little cylinder there. And to be able to fix this, a lot of times we can use the replace normals, or we can use the another one down here. I'll show you that in a second. So sometimes the replace normals will help fix those. So now our normals are a little better. They're not quite correct, but they're a little better. Additionally, if we really needed to fix that, we can go all the way down to the bottom and we can use this Weld 3D. And what the Weld 3D is going to do is it's going to take anything that has like unwelded sides and it's going to weld them together. So for instance, our little end caps that we have here. So I could grab this Weld 3D and after my little shape here, I can input it. So now that is welded together. So, and to be able to see it a little better, basically it's welding this end cap together to this. Because without it, we don't have that. It's not welded. With it, it is now welded and we won't have issues with stuff like this Displace 3D. So that is the weld and replace normals. And again, it's pretty simple. You just tell it whether you want to replace or not, and it'll fix any normals. And remember, to be able to see your normals, we go to 3D options. We can select our little Vertex normals. So now we can see our normals on our little shapes. So again, that's replace normals and weld. They kind of go hand in hand. We have this soft clip right here. And what the soft clip does is it helps with our little camera. So if we input that, and actually without it, let's take our camera and let's go here and let's kind of zoom in. So if you notice, we're just hard zooming in and it's just kind of hitting the camera and doing its weird thing as our camera flies through our shapes. But if we use this soft clip, we can tell it our distance or change our transparency. So now if I go to our camera and I transform it and bring it in, you notice our shapes are fading out as our camera goes through it instead of just hard clipping through them. If I go in, you can see it's fading instead of just hard clipping. And we can affect how that looks on the soft clip by changing our opacity distance and our transparency distance. So that's what the soft clip is for. It's for helping out your camera and your little shapes when they're close to the camera. And this is especially useful when you're doing stuff like 3D particle systems that are flying into the camera. And we'll get into particle systems in a later video. So that is the soft clip. And then we have our little transform 3D, and that's exactly what it is. It's for transforming anything. And this comes in handy, again, if we have tons of shapes and we want to transform everything together, we can just plug them all into a transform 3D and we can transform it as we want. Let's get our camera back to its original location there. But this transform 3D just transforms 3D objects. But that is the transform 3D. And then our triangulate 3D here, all this is for is if our shapes aren't triangulated, say they're in quads, which by default, just so you know, Fusion does triangulate all of its shapes. So let's say if I go here and I say I want wireframe, if I zoom in, you can see they're all triangulated. So they're all triangles. So we're good to go. But if you bring in and say a mesh or a FBX and it's in quads and you want it triangulated, you could just stick this after the model and it's going to re-triangulate everything. And again, there's no settings, there's nothing. It's just going to change those quads into triangles like this. So that is the triangulate. And I believe I forgot one because it looks like I'm missing one. And yes, we are missing this replicate 3D. So the replicate 3D is different from our duplicate 3D because what this is going to do is this is going to replicate shapes on top of whatever we tell it to replicate on. So for instance, let's say we want to put a whole bunch of little spheres on our little text here. So if we look at our replicate node, we have our destination. So this is where we would plug our text 3D because we want our shapes to be on our text 3D. And then we have to tell it what shapes we want to be on our destination. So we could bring in a new little shape node and let's create a sphere. Let's just make it 0.2, so it's kind of small. and we can plug it into our little replicate. And if I plug this into our merge 3D, you can see it just replicated all those spheres on top of our text. And we can go here, we could change this to 0.002 maybe, or 0.02. Maybe that was too small. So now we have all these shapes replicated, and we can change the amount on our little replicate here, or the steps. We can change our colors if we want, if it's using the particle input. Additionally, we can add more shapes if we wanted to. So let's actually go here. Let's change our material color to be purple. There we go. Let's copy this shape, but in this one, let's make these cubes. And let's plug that into our input 2 on a replicate. And of course, we have to change our cube size to 0.02. And they're going to be replicated at the exact same place. That's where this little step comes into play, as well as our little jitter. We can randomize our jitter seed here, but we have to jitter it up a little bit. And let's change the color of our cubes so we can see those colors. And there we go. We just replicated these different shapes on top of our text node. So that's what the replicate node does. So let's disconnect that, bring that over here. So now that is, I believe, all of the different nodes we can use to change our 3D scenes within Fusion. So we've got the bender node. Remember, this just bends, so we can bend, taper, twist, or shear any of our shapes. Our custom vertex node is for all those super smart people who want to attempt to use this. Our displace, remember, just displace is based off whatever we input and what channel we use to displace. Our duplicate node will just duplicate or jitter based on our inputs. Our locator node changes it from our 3D location to 2D location. Our replicate node here, remember, replicates on top of something or at a specific destination. Override 3D comes in handy if we need to override a whole bunch of 3D objects all at once, or if we need to actually do any of these control operations on a text 3D node, because remember, our text 3D node does not natively have them on it. Our replace normals will do exactly that, replace normals. Our weld will weld any of our little vertices together. Our soft clip helps with things coming close to the camera. Transform 3D does exactly that. It transforms our 3D objects or any scene we have plugged into it. In our Triangulate 3D, we'll just change it from quads to triangles. So that is our episode. I will see you guys in the next Learning Fusion episode.